DFS Twins, week 1 of the fantasy playoffs for those of you in season long, but we're here for DFS today. How you fellas doing this morning? Got the band back together this week.
Yeah, man, excited. Good to see you guys.
Good to have you back, Tony. How was the game?
That was awesome. That was my first time watching or seeing Brady live, and it was just a surreal experience. My first time in Raymond James Stadium. Very small. It's kind of more of an intimate type vibe there. Like one big party. We went there. We tailgated. Spent the whole day at the stadium. So it was a great time.
Yeah, you sent those couple of pictures out. Looked like y'all had really good seats too.
I don't know that there's a bad seat in that stadium.
Probably not. Most stadiums there's not really. I mean, unless you're like at AT&T Stadium, you got standing room tickets at the back of the room, then you might be screwed. But
I will tell you this: if you ever go there, one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to sit underneath what they call the cove, which is where that pirate ship is, and they shoot that cannon off. Boy, they must have shot that thing off 400 times during the game. Every time somebody does something, scores, and it is loud. So those people right underneath it, they get kind of the brunt of the cannon, and every break or two, they shoot stuff out with the cannon, and they're got people up there throwing beads and prizes and T-shirts. So it's like they have to give prizes to everyone who sits close to that pirate ship to kind of reward them for sitting so close to it throughout the game.
Your eardrums are gone, but here, have some beads.
It was pretty cool.
Like a fair trade. No, yeah. that cannon's been getting work since Brady came to town too.
Seriously, right?
You picked a good game to go to.
It was a great game. Oh, the whole day was amazing. It was a great experience. I've been to is it Hard Rock now, Miami?
Yes.
I've been to the Miami game a couple times. Totally different vibe, totally different experience. If you're going to go to a game and fly, I've not been to Jacksonville, but that Raymond James Stadium, watching Tampa Bay was just a great experience.
You're probably not missing much at Jacksonville.
Well, maybe we'll see now.
All right, fellas. So week 15 DFS. David, we'll start with you if you want to just run us down your lineup this week, my guy.
Well, since Tony, shared his wonderful story about his game last week, I figured I should share the fact that I placed second again in our major league that we're in. And
well done.
But Zach and I think gave a lot of good advice. I want to give a special shout out to Rashad Penny for definitely stepping up last week when I gave him a very small shout out last week, but I was proud of him. He played so
this week we're shouting him from the rooftops.
Yep. And if he was in a lot of my lineups this week, if that game was being played in the Sunday slate, but since it got moved, he's not an option now. But that Rams defense is dealing with COVID, and it could be an interesting game for him. But on to this week. Obviously, this is the COVID week of the year. It's Armageddon, basically, trying to find players. And I submitted 2 lineups this week. That's it. And I have only 2 players in both of them. So this week, it's sort of a terrific twosome, we'll call it. There were 2 running backs that I thought just were the right price and safe. One is Michael Carter coming off IR, and he is not listed as IR anymore now. He gets tons of throws. That team is decimated by injuries. They're going to have to use him a lot. And I think they'll be losing to the Dolphins and throwing to him a lot, trying to come back. I'm not predicting a touchdown out of him necessarily, just lots of yards and catches. And the other running back is James Robinson. And I had reached the point with James Robinson with Urban Meyer that I was never going to touch him again, but he's gone. And everything I'm reading about transitional coaches is the teams play hard for them. And you got to think Bevel, the promoted coach, has to realize Robinson not running was part of their problem. So I like the 2 of them as a starting point. Around that, there were 4 quarterbacks that I considered this week. They were Kyler Murray, Rodgers, Tua, and Garoppolo. And my 2 lineups, I did one with Tua, one with Murray. Murray's more of a tournament lineup because I think he's so expensive. You got to get creative. So my traditional lineup I'm throwing against Tony this week has Tua at the quarterback. They did get Gaskin back, which could reduce how much they throw a little, but the Jets are just easy to tear apart. I know they don't have Waddle today, but Devontae Parker is back and healthy and is playing great, and I think Gesicki goes off. I saved money at my third receiver spot in my flex by using two really cheap receivers. I like James Washington this week now that Chase Claypool got himself cut from the team. I just think he'll get enough looks, and he's in the 3,000s. It's just too much value for a guy that only needs 5 catches for 50 yards to give you 3 times return. And then I'm going back to Laquan Treadwell again, talking about the Jaguars and them playing hard. He gets 10 to 12 points every week, and he's in the 3s. It's just too much value. And that enabled me to do the 4 things I'm really excited about in my lineup. Number 1, Devonte Adams. He's on fire now. They're playing Baltimore. I think Tony might be playing cornerback for them this week. They're so hurting at corner. And I predict another big blow-up game from him. CeeDee Lamb, go with my Cowboys against the Giants. They've got injuries and COVID problems on defense as well. I think they got their safety McKinney back this week, but I think CeeDee Lamb tears him up. Pollard's possibly going to play, but he's banged up. Zeke doesn't seem himself. I think they're going to have to throw. And also, I think the Giants at home can put up some offense. I got Kittle at tight end with all the money I saved as well, and playing at home against Atlanta with no Elijah Mitchell playing, they're going to have to throw even more. Debo, I think, will be playing running back a lot, should free Kittle up to get a lot of the passes. And all these savings let me take my beloved Cowboys defense against Mike Glennon and the Giants. And I know we're missing a couple of defensive tackles on the line, but I just think Glennon throws picks and they're playing from behind the whole game. So it's not my typical lineup at all. I got 3 or 4 studs and a lot of value thrown around it, but I think it's the right play this week with COVID injuries and just the crazy schedule.
Yeah, COVID has definitely made things interesting this week with matchups and what have you. A couple of rescheduled games. Tony, what you got, my dude?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's not only do David and I look alike, but I think in many ways we also think alike. Let me just kind of start at the running back position because that's where David started, and I fired at the same 2 running backs. I love J-Rob this week with the firing of Urban, release James Robinson-Meyer. I expect Robinson to finally be featured against a very, very porous Texans run defense. Last week, the Texans made Rashad Penny look like the second coming of Walter Payton. And they're giving up an average of more than 170 yards a game since their bye week in week 10. They've allowed 6 rushing touchdowns in the past 3 games. I mean, this could be a J-Rob game. I also love Carter. And it's not that I'm really crazy about Carter, but I love his value. For just 4,700, you get a running back who's moving right back into what Salah is calling a significant role. The Dolphins are a tough matchup versus opposing running backs, but value plus opportunity this week kind of slides him right into my lineup at great value. I agree with David at the quarterback spot. I wanted to get Murray into my lineup, but when I got Murray into my lineup, it just really tied me up on the rest of my roster. So I decided to kind of go more value that in that direction, and I plugged in Jimmy G. So I didn't go with Tua, but I love the 49ers matchup this week versus the Falcons. Garoppolo is quietly putting together a nice fantasy season. I don't think he has a super high ceiling, but I do think he's very safe with upside. The Falcons are allowing an average of almost 24 points a game to opposing quarterbacks, and Jimmy G has scored at least 23 3 times in his last 6 games. I'm kind of stacking him this week, not with Ayuk or Debo, or even with Kittle, who I love at the tight end position as well. But I've decided to stack him with Jeff Wilson Jr. In my flex spot just to cover the total offense because I think the Niners could go crazy. this week. So I just talked just briefly about Wilson because he's my flex guy. With Eli Mitchell out, I know Wilson hasn't done much, but he will get the lead role. Hasty is not a threat to him at all. He's going to get plenty of opportunities this week versus a very suspect Falcons defense. I see him as a great value play at only 5,000. My concern with Wilson is that he doesn't get very involved with the passing game, but I already got the passing game covered with Jimmy G, and I do like Jeff Wilson's chances to score this week. I like his chances to score an awful lot. I did what David did at the wide receiver position. It seems like every week if you play DFS, there are always one or two guys that you almost have to have in your lineup if you're going to win. With the as David called it, the COVID situation this weekend, there aren't that many guys out there, and so one of the guys at the very top of the list is Devonte Adams. So I've got him as one of my receivers. Getting both Carter and Jimmy G into my lineup allowed me to afford Adams, and he could very easily finish as the wide receiver one versus Baltimore. He's as sure a thing as it gets at the wide receiver position this week, and he's worth that hefty $8,900 price tag. I did something different. David kind of made his other core or key player Kittle, and I decided to just kind of get the wide receiver position covered. So I also put in Deontay Johnson. He's an absolute target monster in Pittsburgh. I expect him to see double-digit targets this week. He's going to have high volume against one of the top matchups for opposing wide receivers versus that Tennessee defense. So I love the Adams-Johnson stack. What I did at my third receiver spot is I wanted to get a part of that that Kyler Murray Arizona offense, and the only guy that I could really afford was AJ Green. I preferred to have Kirk, but I couldn't afford it with my two other receivers. I still love AJ Green. I think he's a solid option this week versus Detroit, especially with D-Hop on IR. And at the tight end position, it's funny because David has Tua and Kittle, and I have Garoppolo and Mike Gesicki. He continues to see volume in this offense, and without Waddle, I love Mikey G's potential this week. He saw over 25% of the target share in this offense in week 13 before their bye. 25% of a target share out of a tight end is just absolutely obscene. He had more routes run than Devontae Parker in week 13. The Jets have allowed a tight end to score in 2 out of the past 3 games. It's just a great matchup, great value. So I like Mike Gesicki there in that spot. At defense, the best defense I could afford with a great matchup is the Jacksonville Jaguars versus Houston. I also like, and we don't talk a whole lot about this, but one of the other stacks that you can really do in DFS if you've not done it before is the stack a defense with a running back, especially if you think that game script is going to work more where the team is going to ride that running back and kind of do more ball control, time of possession. And I think this game could go that direction. It's very possible that J-Rob gets an obscene volume, puts Houston into negative game script, setting up the defense. And I think Jacksonville is really out to prove that they are a better team without Urban Meyer. So I'm looking for them to kind of play out of their minds today. I like that defense this week. So that's my lineup. We have a lot of overlap, very similar in thinking. We just kind of deviated a little bit with the quarterback, the tight end, and in one of those receiver positions.
I agree with you on the Jacksonville take, though. I do think they come out and play very inspired ball today against Houston.
Inspired is a great word.
Without Urban Meyer, I think they'll go to town. So, whereas early in the week when we're talking about our potential like streaming defenses and stuff, we looked at Houston, Jacksonville, and went, ugh. Then they fired Urban and changed everything. So I really do think they are a very good defensive matchup now.
They are, and I think that's one of the reasons, just to go back to him, I think that's one of the reasons why you have to really think seriously about James Robinson. Not that he's been a squeaky wheel. If you ever listened to him or watched him in interviews, he comes off as a very humble, just a solid kid. But that in this offense, even Trevor Lawrence was calling for him to get the football. Right. So I agree. I think Bevel is going to come out and they're going to ride this guy today, and that could really be the game script. They don't have a whole lot more going on offense, so could be the James Robinson show today.
Yeah, and I think it will be too. And y'all both got it covered, which is perfect.
I have to say also, Tony, I told you I had a second lineup, and in that second lineup I had Kyler Murray, we talked about, and those same running backs, but I also put Gesicki as the tight end in that one. Yeah. I definitely liked him a lot. Another guy, I also had AJ Green. I paired him up with Kirk with Kyler Murray. I doubled up on it, which is why it's more of a larger contest, not a cash contest kind of lineup. Some special things have to happen to make it work.
Right.
I also like Amon St. Brown in that game for the Lions going against it. He's had 12 targets the last 2 games. It looks like Goff is eyeing him a lot. They're going to be losing, I think. So we definitely thought a lot alike. With which games were the hot games to go after. I'm actually surprised. I was waiting to hear you give me a double tight end week because I think tight end is the one position that had some attractive stuff this week. And the other guy I had considered besides Gesicki and Kittle was actually Andrews again. With Jackson probably out, I've definitely learned when you put a backup quarterback in, they look for the tight end a lot.
Yeah.
And so I was waiting to see sort of an Andrews Gesicki or an Andrews Kittle lineup out of you. But I
thought about that. But what wound up happening, I started with J-Rob and Carter, and then I kind of rotated my quarterback between I didn't play with Tua. I actually had at one point I had Big Ben in there just with the stack for Deontay.
Yep.
But J-Rob and Carter. And then from there, though, I really pivoted towards that receiver spot. There are only a couple of receivers, I think, who sit at the top of that list this week. The Cooper Kupp is postponed. I wasn't that crazy about CeeDee Lamb. There really isn't anybody else there, kind of that you can put into that top 1 or 2 spot outside of. Maybe Deebo Samuel, but I'm not really sure what to expect with him. Didn't want to pay the $8,200 for Deebo. So I just thought having Devonte Adams and Deontay Johnson was the direction that I wanted to go. And once I did that, everything else kind of fell into place.
Yeah, I started out that way. And then when I read about Ben having the pectoral issue, I got a little nervous. I literally had Ben and Deontay as my combo from the start. And then I kind of pivoted and said, I'll put in James Washington as an inexpensive part of that game because Tennessee is just atrocious against the pass. But I decided to play it a little safer with CD and Kittle, guys that I sort of know the quarterback situation.
Yeah,
but
I don't blame you.
Deontay could be a game winner for you today for sure.
No, that's kind of why I wanted him in there. One of the other guys that I did kind of like that I kind of rotated in, when I didn't have any remaining salary, so I got basically what I could afford. But in that flex spot, I really wanted to try and figure out a way to get Devonta Freeman in there with Tennessee. I just thought that.
Oh, we lost Tony.
I guess the internet was shocked by Devonta Freeman there. Yeah.
I guess so. He said Devonta Freeman, and it went nope. Just got rid of him. Well, we'll give him a minute, see if he makes it back here. Was there anybody else that you didn't mention already that you liked that you had wished you got in your lineup somewhere?
I guess, Javonta Williams has been hot for Denver, but with Melvin Gordon back, I kind of lost some of the love for him. T. Higgins has been hot, and I could see him sort of being an option, but you'll notice I had that Cowboys defense in there. They cost a little more. Usually I save money on D, but when I sort of didn't find any jump up I couldn't turn Laquan Treadwell or James Washington into anything of value that I liked enough to give up on the Dallas D.
They're pretty much at the bottom of the price range anyways. So,
so Donta Foreman is
back, Tony. Huh? You shocked everybody with Donta Foreman, and it just shut you down.
I guess so. Yeah, I kind of like him this week as a play versus what are they playing? Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So I thought, he Pittsburgh's been very, very leaky against the running back position. He's going to get some good volume. Thought that he could be a sneaky play. But ultimately he was another $200 over Jeff Wilson. And I really liked kind of stacking Wilson with Garoppolo. So I left him off my lineup.
I think Gaskin could be sneaky again. Also, he's definitely a boomer bust kind of play, but the Jets are pretty bad.
Against the Jets.
Yeah.
My issue with Gaskin is just his price point. For 5,600, I just felt like we could do better. I could do better at the running back spot, at the flex spot. I'd rather pay $5 for Wilson than 56 for Gaskin. Mm-hmm. And I already have Gesicki, so I've got a part of that offense. But I hear what you're saying. Gaskin is a guy you never know what to expect. He just concerns me.
What was the price on Foreman again?
52.
52. See, much rather have Foreman than Gaskin myself for $400 less. So
I think another guy is actually one of Tony's favorites from the past is Devonta Freeman. Again, without Lamar Jackson in there, he's been, I think he had 8 targets last week. So he's just heavily involved in the passing game. Huntley is a nice running quarterback that can throw the ball, but seems to like to check down to Freeman a lot. So they might be losing that game and throwing lots of passes to Freeman while they're playing catch up.
Very possible.
That's a good call. What do you think, David? What do you think at one of the positions I think I was trying to target and figure out how to get into my lineup is the Arizona running back spot, but now with Connor and Chase Edmonds, just didn't feel very comfortable with either one of them. I'd love to have, if Edmonds was going to miss another week and Connor was healthy or vice versa, you'd love to have one of those guys versus this Detroit defense. But what are your thoughts on that running back situation?
I think that, I like safe, and I think it's dangerous to try to figure that out. I think that game could be in hand easily. And if either of them is not 100%, they might protect them. And we haven't seen it that much this year, but Kyler Murray used to run in a lot of touchdowns when they got close. So that could also further dampen their value. I think no DeAndre Hopkins opens up a lot for AJ Green and Kirk for sure, but that's a tough game to read. I do like the Lions have fight in them. And, one of the things I love about all the players in that game is we're in December, the weather's getting rougher, and they're playing in a dome. So that's another thing attractive about that game. And I could see a lot more throwing because of that fact on both sides. So I am staying away from them. I'm going to use your Gaskin commentary. I don't think the price is worth the risk.
Well, Chase Edmonds is good value at 5,100. I just don't know what to expect with him, coming back from.
I don't know how you even consider him if Connor's playing. I really don't.
No, I'm on the same page. That's why
I think Connor is too much money. So
right, and that's part of the reason why I shied away from Kyler Murray. I think if that situation were different with that backfield, I'd feel more comfortable with Kyler Murray. But not knowing what to expect this week against that Detroit, because they could very quickly jump out to a good lead and shut Kyler Murray down. Not shut him down, but you know what I'm saying, kind of lean more on that run game. And for his price point, I just didn't feel comfortable spending that $7,900.
Well, that's why I told you I'm using him more in a big contest lineup where you don't want to do what everyone does. You want to be different. And I loaded up heavy on that game. And if it turns out to be a surprise shootout, I got a chance of doing well in contests that you're trying to set yourself apart. But in a cash game where there's only 3, 5, or even 10 members, you got to play it safer. And,
sure.
I definitely don't see a reason to shy away from Garoppolo or Tua in those scenarios. And I couldn't make a combo with Devonte Adams and Rodgers that I liked.
Yeah.
So
in a game like that where you play Kyler Murray in DFS, like in this week, with D-Hop out, are you also stacking him with the Zach Ertz?
No, actually, what I ended up doing was stacking him with both Kirk and AJ Green. And
okay,
I created it when I didn't know which running backs were going to play and if they were going to play, but I decided to ride it out again to be different and to stand out. So I got our two favorite running backs in Robinson and Carter with Kyler Murray, but the receivers are Kirk, AJ Green, and then Amon St. Brown.
Okay.
At tight end, I went Gesicki, and then I didn't finish it out for you guys, but I put Deebo Samuel in the flex because I had enough room left, and then threw in the San Fran defense.
Wow.
And sort of did a running back defense special where my running back is also a receiver. So, but that's why I think that lineup stands out. I think it's going to be original. So I got that in $1 and $3 contests that might have 6,000 people in them. But if it goes that way, we could really stand out and jump to the top.
Got it. You got to be bold in those types of lineups.
Exactly. And you want to load up on one game. There's the benefit of that. You need to be all in on a game on both sides going your way. So that one kind of jumped out at me this week. But you'll notice I've definitely had the most success the last couple of weeks in the smaller contests by not going too heavy on one game. And Zach last week tried to load up on the Dallas game, and it didn't work out the way I think he wanted, where he had CeeDee Lamb and Schultz, and Cooper was the one receiver who did well, and the defense played so well that Dak didn't have to do anything. So in a cash game, if you spread your risk and have players from a lot of different games, I think you got the chance to do well enough without going down with one game going wrong.
Yeah. You definitely like to diversify your portfolio, as it were. All right. Y'all want to jump over here in the chat and hit some of these questions?
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right. Corey wants to know Bateman or Julio?
I'm all in on Bateman in that one.
I too.
Just not trusting the Tennessee passing game. Don't know what you get with Julio, and Bateman's been consistent in coming on.
Yeah, Julio is still untrustworthy, but Bateman with Huntley did very well last week. So
not just that, but also Marquise Brown is banged up.
Yeah, also that.
So
and they will be losing that game.
I like Bateman a lot more in that matchup. And again, kind of going back to Tennessee, you could really see them lean heavily on that run game. You can see Devonta Freeman get a good volume today, running against what has turned out to be a weakness for that Pittsburgh defense, which is their run defense.
People have very much been exploiting that run defense in Pittsburgh. Joey
100%.
Parks, you want Freiermuth, Knox, or Goddard today?
That's tough, actually.
That is very tough.
Choices. Wow, I think. Wow.
I got them ranked Knox, Goddard, Freiermuth.
I don't know you can go wrong with that. I think Goddard kind of jumps out to me as a chance to blow up against Washington, just in that game, being one of value. But Freiermuth has been very safe, as well as Knox. So I think I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go Knox with that Carolina defense, maybe trying to shut down the receivers more and having good defensive backs. Diggs might get taken out of the game. So I would probably lean Knox, but any of them would work for me.
I'm going to go with your original thought, David, which is Goddard. Goddard is getting, for a tight end, elite utilization in the past couple of weeks, especially in week 13. The only other tight end who surpassed him as far as routes run and targets was Kittle. So I love him in this matchup. I think he's going to be the guy who gets the volume. Freiermuth is the one who they do kind of look at him in the red zone, but his target share has started to taper off. So for me, it's between Goddard and Knox, and I do give kind of Goddard the slight edge just because of that elite utilization and volume.
The only thing about Freiermuth is with Chase Claypool out now, they might utilize him more in the midfield passing game, not just the end zone. So they're all great tight ends to have. But
I'd rather see it on the field before I plug him into my lineup for the fantasy playoffs.
Definitely.
But you could be right. You could be right. Those are great options to have.
Yeah, for sure. April says hi. Hi, April.
Hi, April. Nice to see you.
Dill Nye, Jeff Wilson or Sony Michel?
Well, David's been on the Sony Michel the past couple of weeks, but I think this is a week you got to kind of move off him with Hendy coming back. So I'm all over Jeff Wilson in this matchup. You already talked about him in my DFS lineup. I think he's a great play this week. He's going to get all of the volume. He's going to get those goal line looks. Hasty is not a threat to him. So I expect them to ride him. Now, he hasn't been very efficient with his touches, but I do think that changes this week versus that Atlanta defense.
I agree. There's the extra added fear with the Rams with COVID, and you don't want to wake up on Tuesday ready to play Sony Michel just to find out that he got COVID and can't play.
That's a great point.
In right now.
That's a great point.
That make you nervous. All right. April's back says pick one: AJ Green, Devontae Parker, Devonta Smith, full PPR.
These are tough questions today.
I think this one's an easy.
Well, I think they're all
nice
plays,
Parker.
But yeah, I was gonna say Parker jumps out to me without Waddle there. AJ Green is a solid play this week, but you just don't know which way the flow of that game will go. Could be Kirk, could be Ertz, could be the running backs. I think Parker is just going to be a target hog this week. They got to run through him. I don't think the Jets have anyone that can cover him. And when Parker's healthy, he plays really well. And we haven't really seen him without Waddle this season. So I think you got to go with him.
What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think for me, I put Devonta Smith at the bottom of that list. His role seems to be diminishing in that offense, and I don't like his target share. I don't like the volume that he's seeing, and I don't trust him this week in that fantasy playoff type game where you need to have production out of that position. I think Parker for me is the guy. He gives you, I believe, both the highest, well, maybe not the highest ceiling. He certainly gives you the highest floor because he's going to see tons of volume. Yep. He is a volume receiver anyway. And without Waddle, I agree. Double-digit targets this week. He does give you some nice upside as well. It's tough with the kind of the AJ Green. I prefer Kirk over AJ Green. AJ Green could have a very, very nice game, but this game could very much turn into an Arizona run game, where they just ride Chase Edmonds and James Conner. So it's a little bit of a gamble with AJ Green, even though he looked great in week 14. I don't trust him as much. And so Parker's the guy.
Yep, absolutely. You are welcome, April. Malachi says, so look, I'm in first place. I'm 11-3, got 5 running backs. Need to pick 2. Penny, Freeman, Dillon, Gaskin, Jeff Wilson Jr.
Wow. I think right off the bat, we can cross Penny off the list for everything I just said about that Seattle Rams game. You just don't know what will happen with the game. I do think this could be a good week for him. And when the game was on Sunday, I thought about using him, but with the guys you have all being similar, I would play it safe and get guys that are going to get their games in today. So he's the first guy I would take off the list. As much as we've talked up Jeff Wilson, I do think there's risk that Deebo Samuel gets the good carries at running back. So I'm picking between Freeman, A.J. Dillon, and Gaskin. I think the attractive thing to me about Gaskin and Freeman is a lack of they're both sort of number ones where AJ's a 2, but Savion Ahmed is playing, and I think you can't pass on what AJ Dillon could get you at the end of games. They're using him like a battering ram as the games go on. I think they're going to be winning that. So I would actually just double down on that game and go Freeman and Dillon and not take the volatility of Gaskin at this point if you're in the playoffs. So it would be Freeman and Dillon for me.
What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, I would agree. I think a little bit more about Jeff Wilson than David, although it is difficult to convince myself to play him based on his efficiency in prior games. Penny is just, that guy's a glass box. So
He is.
that guy could get hurt, running out of the tunnel, and I just don't trust him to stay healthy for the game. I agree with your take, David. Green Bay has made a very concerted effort to become a more physical football team. And A.J. Dillon now has kind of taken on a big part of that role, especially on offense. And they are transitioning this offense more to an A.J. Dillon type backfield and using Aaron Jones kind of to spell him and as a receiver out of that backfield. But he's going to get some of those goal line looks. I like him a lot. I like A.J. Dillon a lot, and I agree with your take on Gaskin and Freeman. So I guess you said Dillon and Freeman?
Yep.
Yes, sir. I'm on the same page. Excuse me.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree with that. Now, let me ask you all this. I got a question of my own, just for fun. If you had to pick between Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon today, which one y'all playing?
That's a good question. I think that if you look at the flow of things, Dillon is really becoming a bigger part of the game and might be the safer guy. Jones is obviously explosive, but I think I would take Dillon in an outdoor, rough weather kind of game. Time of year we are on the road, I could see them also getting the lead and wanting to keep Jones healthy.
It's not even about that. I think, what you really want to do is you've got to take a very strong look at the utilization. How much opportunity does a player have in the offense? And here you have Aaron Jones coming back last week, from the bye week, and he had 5 carries and 3 catches, so 8 total touches. I don't like it. I don't like it. I think without Lamar Jackson, with Huntley, Packers play very strong defense. This is going to be a defensive game, and they're going to ride A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon had 15 carries last week. So you're going to I think you're going to see close to 20 touches or more for A.J. Dillon. As again, they want to be more of a physical football team, especially when they're getting into this December, kind of January type football where you've got to be able to run the ball and play strong defense. So I like A.J. Dillon over Aaron Jones. I'm surprised I'm saying that because Aaron Jones is a guy that I loved coming into the season, have been kind of supporting him all season long. But I think that injury to him really opened the door for A.J. Dillon to take over that backfield.
Yeah,
and I'm not just saying it; you see it in the usage.
Yeah, they're almost transitioning Jones into a true third down back.
Yes,
which is
no, definitely.
It's unfortunate for Jones owners for sure.
5 carries for Jones, healthy, against Dillon's 15. That tells you everything you need to know right there.
Jones is more explosive, but Dillon is a threat to the defense to wear them down, and I think that's how they're using him.
That's how they're using it. It's almost kind of like very similar to Chubb and Kareem Hunt. It's kind of like that type of a backfield.
Yeah. He followed up saying he had Hunt and Henry, but both got hurt, so that's what he's left with. You were very, very deep at running back then because you could be off. You could be a lot worse off right now than what you are. April says, "Are we dropping Pittman after last night? Glad I didn't start him. There's no shot you're dropping him. We kind of knew it was going to be a rough matchup last night. I didn't expect a ejection for fighting, but." I'm not dropping him.
And I think he's very volatile. He has good games and bad games. It would depend who else you have and who you could pick up instead of him. But in general, he's probably worthy of rostering all the way to the end.
Tony?
I wouldn't drop him. Last night was just a brutal matchup for Wentz and that passing game, Pittman included. So a lot of that had to do with the matchup. Also, the game script. Who thought we were going to see the Colts jump out to a dominant lead over the Patriots, and they just rode Jonathan Taylor. What Jonathan Taylor wound up with 27 carries or so?
Something like that, yeah. 27
Wentz had 50 yards or so passing. I just think it was more game script. That said, like Dave kind of go along with what David was talking about. He is a volatile receiver at this point in the season. He doesn't have a fantastic remaining schedule. So I don't know that I'm planning on playing him at all this season, but not knowing what's going to happen with COVID next week, he's not a bad guy to have on your bench in case you need to plug him in.
Yeah, I think very even true. When they started to think about throwing again, Wentz threw an interception, and then the coaches woke up and realized we're not doing that again. So that game definitely was game script, and the Patriots are really hard to throw on. So I don't know that that's the best indicator of what Pittman and Wentz are.
Yeah. Speaking of game script, how about Ramondre Stevenson and Nick Folk screwing everybody over last night?
Right?
That one bit me.
Seriously.
New Life, James Robinson, trust, rest of the playoffs.
I think we'll see this week. If he can't have a good game against the Texans, then no. If he goes off, then you have hope.
Yeah, I do trust him an awful lot this week and next week. Next week, he's at the Jets. Week 17, he's at New England. So that game would probably have me a little bit more concerned, although New England has not necessarily been dominant against opposing running backs. I think for the next 2 weeks, you can certainly ride him.
I mean, he's no JT, but JT just had a really good running game against New England. So
JT also did it against Buffalo. That's
he's just running on everybody.
He's just a rare dude.
Yeah, he's matchup proof.
Yeah.
What about Hollywood? We trusted him for the playoffs. I don't even trust him this week.
Yeah, I think he had a good run, but now it's a different team.
Yeah. I think first off, I want to see him get healthy. He does have a nice schedule remaining versus, with defense ranking versus opposing receivers. The problem is he's been very, very inconsistent. And Bateman is beginning to come on a little bit. I'd also like to see the situation with Lamar and Huntley. So the one thing you don't want, kind of going along with what David was talking about earlier in your DFS lineup, especially when you're playing with a smaller group of guys, you don't want the volatility. The one thing you can't afford on any given week in the fantasy playoffs is a guy to kind of have a clunker, because that he could end your season. So you want safe with upside.
Yeah. So she followed up on dropping Pittman. She has Renfro, Parker, Jefferson, and Lockett. I still wouldn't drop Pittman if I didn't have to.
If you need another position covered for a seasonal league, then you're not crazy to drop Pittman with those four. But
I agree.
Parker doesn't always stay healthy. Lockett is also very inconsistent. And as Tony wisely said, COVID now means having depth is vital, even beyond what you think you need. So it's really a matter of what you could go get.
We need to get April to. She needs to be a guest host. I mean, look at those those receivers. Great job, April. One thing, April, too, just to kind of be thinking about, and I'm comfortable with you dropping Pittman with those receivers. If you're going to do that, don't necessarily look to pick up another receiver. Look at getting depth at your quarterback or your tight end position. One of the other positions where you might be a little more shallow. And be looking ahead to the upcoming weeks. Like if you make it to week 16, week 17, who might be a good guy a player to have on your roster that you can stream, that particular week. So not a bad idea to do that.
And this season in particular, most of us don't think about quarterback depth. Usually that's a pretty safe position, but COVID has changed everything.
100%.
And you can see how quickly you can't even necessarily go get the backup quarterback to your quarterback if COVID hits, because they'll probably be gone also. And I'm sure anyone who had Heineke as their quarterback doesn't want to start Garrett Gilbert or whoever they got that they picked up. You want to have a real option. So a third quarterback isn't crazy. I picked up Rashad Penny this past week because in week 17 they play Detroit. So that's going to be a great Super Bowl matchup that I can exploit. If he can stay healthy, since he's more glass jaw, I know, Tony, like you were saying, but definitely Pittman might not be worth being empty somewhere else with backups.
And she has Allen and Herbert. So
she's Allen and Herbert
at the quarterback position.
Yeah, she's covered there.
Check out running backs, tight ends. Yeah,
it's her first year.
And here's the thing too. Like that's a great example because next week, Allen is playing at New England, so you're not going to play Allen next week. You've got Justin Herbert playing at Houston, so he's definitely a stronger play. Might be the top play next week at the quarterback position. One other thing just to be looking at, April, is who your potential opponent might be and how you might be able to April is cheating. Who you might be able to block. Can you block your opponent? Is there a player out there that if you pick up, you can block somebody from grabbing and playing against you? So that's another thing just to think about. But great job your first year.
Yeah, for real.
You need to give her a spot on the Fantasy Football Network.
For real. Njoku or Pitts at tight end?
Yeah, I'd be terrified of any Cleveland Brown this week. You have no clue. Njoku might have to be an offensive lineman for them and block for all we know. So I'm playing Pitts.
He's playing center this week.
Yeah. Nice cup. Hold that up, Kyle.
Yep.
There we go. Let's have a proud Cowboys moment.
Not wearing a hat today. I'm on the network hat, so I had to have the Dallas Cup.
I like it.
Got to play Pitts. I'm not crazy about the matchup this week for Pitts and just his utilization, especially down in that red zone. But he is still getting that high utilization. Njoku's just it's too much of a gamble for me, especially when you have Pitts on your roster.
Yeah. George Warburg, Sanders, Beckham, McLaurin, Kirk, half PPR. I guess we're just picking one. Looks like I don't know if that's Emmanuel Sanders, if we're picking a receiver, or if that's Miles and we're picking a flex.
I think actually with that, Kirk jumps out at me. I'm, not happy about OBJ, and the Rams situation in that game in general. It's good to know he's going to play. McLaurin, I don't know who their quarterback is. I don't know if he can throw it even 5 yards down the field. And Emmanuel Sanders has been just
it's
dark throw option. That's it. So,
he clarified down here. It's Miles Sanders. He's looking for a flex. So
okay, Miles Sanders definitely a better option. I would be looking at probably him or Kirk.
I like Kirk.
I do too.
I don't like Miles Sanders at all.
Like Sanders,
my second choice would probably be Beckham.
I think in that case, I'd go with a running back just because of the more touches and that Rams game scaring me again.
But it's Miles Sanders. That's
he's going to have that game with 3 touchdowns. It's coming. So, but Kirk is way safer this week.
I don't know. Miles Sanders, man. Oof. New life. Javonte rest the playoffs. I mean,
Gordon really weakens his value.
Definitely.
So, but he's compared to a lot of the options out there, he's a solid running back. He's playing great, but they just keep wanting to use Gordon. So it just reduces his value. I'd rather have Javonte than Gordon, but
I'd rather have Javonte next year,
without a doubt.
So just real quick, Javonte has a great schedule. And even with Gordon, he's been getting a heavy dose of
he's still RB2
of touches. No, absolutely still an RB2. I think they're both probably in that RB2 range. One of the reasons why I also like Javonte is, I guess Javonte is also banged up. But if anything should happen to Gordon today or throughout the course of the remaining season, Devonta Williams is a surefire, RB1 weekly, especially with his remaining schedule. So
yeah, absolutely.
But you got to play him unless you have better options. I don't know who else you're playing over Javonte as probably your RB2.
Yeah, totally. April didn't draft a kicker or defense because she didn't know she was supposed to, but ended up to my advantage. That's true. Yeah, you got some nice
I don't know
because
I don't know if you picked that up, Kyle, but she says she has Kelsey for her tight end.
Oh, did I miss that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, she only has Kelsey at tight end, so you might want to think about grabbing, if you do drop Pittman, grab another tight end just in case.
I think you're not drafting a kicker is really smart. I want to take that a step further. I remove kickers from the league I run. Kickers should be banned, and I have no issue with not drafting a kicker at your draft. Well done.
I usually don't draft a kicker. I'll pick one up right before the week 1, but I know Corey will argue to the death that they are very relevant and should absolutely be included. I'm a little indifferent. Let's see. Yeah, see, George is where I'm at with the Miles Sanders thing. There's just too many running backs. You never know who's going to get the carries. So I agree. All right, it looks like all of our questions. We've been going for about 50 minutes now. Almost went the full hour today.
Like it.
Great show.
Dude, we got a bunch of new names in the chat today. I appreciate y'all being here.
100%.
And then New Life, of course, he's been around. But I appreciate everybody being here. Thanks for your questions. Come back next week. And Tony, David, appreciate y'all.
Appreciate you too. Appreciate the support. And if we don't see, I don't know if people just check us out for DFS, for DFS Twins on Sunday. But if you don't check us out again throughout the week, just have an awesome Christmas, an awesome holiday season. Happy New Year to everyone. Again, just so appreciate the support and encouragement throughout the season. And you too, I love you, Kyle and David. This has been awesome.
Yeah, definitely. This is a lot of fun for me as well. I see we got one other question just popped up with an easy answer. I don't know if you want to throw it out.
Corey can wait.
Okay.
Go ahead. Tackle it,
guys.
Yeah, let David tackle it. Go ahead, knock it out. It's an easy one.
Yeah, you can go ahead. He's already brought it up. We'll go ahead and answer.
Claypool isn't on a team, so that kind of makes this an easy decision. He was cut from the Steelers last week. So definitely, I like the other two's upside, so I would go with them.
I didn't see Claypool got cut. Is that true?
Yes, he did.
Are you sure?
This is why you have us, Kyle. Helped you with your tough lineup decisions like players that were cut.
There's literally nothing about it on Edge. And I follow that closely. I don't know. That's weird. There's nothing about it on here. They would have covered that.
Remember I said I'm playing Washington in my lineup because he got cut?
I know. When you said that earlier, I looked, and it wasn't on there, and that's why I was...
I wish I could say I was breaking news, but I am not. So...
Well, we'll find out today. We can
we'll find out today. I can't find anything about him being cut, so I don't know.
It was several days ago.
Where you saw that, or who? I don't know. I'll have to get on Twitter and find out. But I really haven't seen anything about. I literally just Googled it, and it's nowhere. So I don't know where that came from, but we'll find out.
By the way, I'm merciful. Fournette is a weekly must start. You're not benching him, especially not for Foreman.
Yep.
You're never benching Fournette. All right. That's the last question for real. Yeah. Merry Christmas to everybody. Good luck this week. And we'll see y'all next time.
Happy holidays,
all right, guys.
Take care.